Hi everyone, welcome to the Community Classroom. This is Dr. Tracy McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator, and we're going to be addressing what is the truth about slavery. There are a few very vocal individuals insisting on a number of historical myths and lies related to slavery. These include things such as slavery happened in reverse. Many of you have heard this before, meaning that enslaved individuals were transported from America to Africa versus from Africa to America. The other lie is that slavery was actually paid and salaried labor. It was a job. Another lie / myth is that no one was forced into slavery. It was a choice. Additionally, there is the lie that it was quote-unquote white individuals and not quote-unquote black individuals who were the true and only enslaved people in America and also in South Africa. And there was the use of this picture of an emancipated child to serve as evidence of this assertion that only quote-unquote white individuals were enslaved. Now, individuals insisting on the rightness of these positions offer the assertion that these assertions are true because even quote-unquote white people and quote-unquote Latino people around the world are saying the same thing. There's also this insistence that if they are wrong, show the research that refutes these assertions. And so what we're going to do, we've already provided previous research to address all of these issues, but we are going to address this one piece of evidence of this picture that is being used to support this lie regarding the historical narrative of slavery and ADOS. Now we're going to provide snippets of this testimony with these assertions. We're just going to let them play, and then there will be the provision of systematic interjections and clarifications. Hopefully this will support individuals ceasing with fabricating these nouveau, out-of-the-air slave narratives that are inconsistent with any history. If this video appears on anything other than Dr. Tracy McCarthy, it is stolen and unauthorized. Let's get started.
You know, doing some things that people not talking about. If they want to find out the answers to how I got my answers, then research my research, then research that research, and then keep going. And reparations is only due to a certain few. Depending on what they're talking about. Like, I mean, if they're talking about slavery, then everybody would get reparations, including white people. They also did the exact same thing our ancestors did. Everybody was slaves. This was big business, and that's documented. But mark my word, I'm sure it's a few studies going on right now. I'm still checking the records to verify information, but these white folks is losing population. All the way back, I'm talking about their direct population. They've been fighting for that for the longest. They felt outcast. They were the real slaves because it wasn't that many of them. They felt outcast, and look what they did. They did the same thing in Africa, South Africa to be exact. The same thing. They changed them to Bantus. They changed their identities. Paper genocide. They did the same thing over here. That's the Mandela effect. You know, forget anybody that got to say I'm letting all my stuff float. Everything over 100,000. They got to catch up. I put in a lot of work. A lot of work, and I've been traveling. My work speaks for itself. Anybody that's against it, you got a lot more work to do. Period. You got a lot more work to do. You got a lot more catching up to do, and that's not a brag. That's just to let you know that you ain't on my level, no matter who you are. I don't care if you West. I don't care if you West, Pan-African, whatever you want to call yourself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I surpassed all of y'all, and I didn't do that purposely. That was done purposely because they know I'm speaking the truth. If I'm speaking a lie, point it out. Point it out. A long time coming, but I know a change gonna come.
Now let's first address this issue of this picture that is used as evidence to support this contention that only quote-unquote white individuals were enslaved, or they were the true enslaved individuals. Now this picture is a depiction of a little girl known as Rosa, and it comes out of children from New Orleans, and these individuals were noted as free persons, and they were understood in New Orleans as free persons of color. Now, individuals who are not familiar with Louisiana may look at individuals and automatically see them as quote-unquote white, when that may not be their understood ethnicity or their understood ancestry in Louisiana. And so if some people are familiar with Louisiana, they know that there are all sorts of classifications related to the one drop rule. And so looks can be deceiving for those individuals who are only looking online to get information related to these pictures and to get information related to the history of enslavement in Louisiana and the history of the people. And so one of the things that people need to keep in mind is that you don't only have this idea of biracial identity or mulatto identity in Louisiana. There are classifications such as Quadroon and Octoroon, and you have creolized identities in Louisiana. And although someone may be very light in terms of complexion, the question in Louisiana historically has been, what is that lineage? And so in this instance, you have a little girl, and you can see the profile picture, and you can see, if you look closely at the pictures, you can see that the little girls are not Nordic in appearance. And so you see 3 of the little girls on the left-hand side, and then you see additional depictions of Rosa used as evidence in this monologue. You see additional depictions of Rosa off to the right. And what you'll notice is there is no indication that Rosa is quote unquote white. What it indicates is that Rosa is a quote unquote slave girl from New Orleans, and we're going to get into what these pictures were really about. And so if an individual does not do the research, they may not uncover the truth about these pictures. And so there's an appearance with the pictures, but they were used to serve a particular purpose, and part of that purpose was actually deception in terms of the ancestry of the children. Now, if you want to see these pictures, you can also look at them through the Library of Congress. Now, this particular picture is also a part of that collection, is of a little girl named Rebecca. She was an enslaved child in her father's house. And what you notice is that part of this whole dynamic was to present children who were very light, who were not clearly having one drop in terms of the quote-unquote Negro blood. But what you can see down below is that she indeed is descended from individuals who would have been classified as Negro. So she has mulatto ancestors. And here you see a discussion related to the little boy in the middle. His name is Charles. You see that there's a notation related to his complexion being quote unquote very fair, his hair being light and silky. He's also owned by his father, so he was enslaved there. And also you can see that there's a notation that his mother was mulatto. You can also see that there's a notation about all of the children appearing to have not one drop in terms of that one drop rule. And so this is all about the appearance. And so in other words, the focus was on getting individuals to donate based upon a belief that the children were quote unquote white and not of mixed blood heritage.
Reparations is only due to a certain few. depending on what they're talking about. Like, I mean, if they're talking about slavery, then everybody would get reparations, including white people. They also did the exact same thing our ancestors did. Everybody was slaves. This was big business, and that's documented. But mark my word, I'm sure it's a few studies going on right now. I'm still checking the records to verify information, but these white folks is losing population. All the way back, I'm talking about their direct population. They've been fighting for that for the longest. They felt outcast. They were the real slaves because it wasn't that many of them. They felt outcast, and look what they did. They did the same thing in Africa, South Africa to be exact. The same thing. They changed them to Bantus. They changed their identities. Paper genocide. They did the same thing over here. That's the Mandela effect. And when I mean by here, I'm talking about South, Central, and North America. All of them. We can't exclude none of them. That's the Americas. That's Turtle Island. Pacific Island included. Even the First Nations of Canada, salute to y'all. I love y'all too. Fiji's, I love y'all too. I get love from all over the world. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. That's not a brag. That's just letting you know I'm not joking. If I said something wrong, call it out. If I said something wrong, call it out. And if you correct me, I stand corrected. The answers to how I got my answers, then research my research, then research that research, and then keep going. Then I go to my brother.
Now, there's an insistence on researching the research and then researching that research to test these assertions. And the fact is that right now there is no valid or reliable research available that supports this contention related to the racial makeup of enslaved individuals in America or the Americas or in South Africa. That research currently does not exist. Just because someone says something in a very convincing manner, someone says something forcefully, it does not mean that what they are saying is accurate. And so you can research the research, you can, research on and on and on, and you are not going to find this research data that supports this contention that the true enslaved individuals were all quote unquote white. You are not going to find that research in the Americas, and you're not going to find that research in South Africa. And there's also the insistence that you need to dig a little deeper to find these answers, and you have to get offline and you have to get out and do some field research to get these answers. But the fact is that this is not the type of research that requires field research. You can actually see the data in hard copies. You can see the data online. You can see it in census data. You can see it in slave voyages data. You can see it in other primary historical resources. And so the information is there. It's just that the information is not there to support this contention related to the quote unquote racial makeup of the enslaved individuals that this individual is asserting. And here you can see the research from Professor Mitchell out of University of New Orleans explaining what was going on with those pictures. And so again, those pictures were created as a part of a vignette, but they were not created to actually provide evidence that individuals who were enslaved were quote unquote white. These pictures were created again to deceive basically donors, to get them to donate based upon this belief that the little girls, the children, resembled individuals who would be donating. And so that was the purpose of creating this entire dynamic with these pictures. And you can see over to the right, there's a discussion related to the education and labor of freed people, and that these were 8 emancipated slaves. And so there is a clarity related to who these children were, and there is clarity related to the ethnic makeup of these children, or the ancestral makeup of the children. And so it shows that these pictures cannot be used as proof that the enslaved individuals in America or in Africa were wholly quote unquote white. And you can see here additional clarification. It says, of these portraits, most included only the whitest looking children, Rosa, Rebecca, and Charles. And here the researcher clarifies that what made Rosa and Rebecca so beguiling for 19th century audiences was that these lovely quote unquote white girls were not quote unquote white. And what these pictures did was they actually downplayed the plight of actual quote unquote black children who were enslaved. And so these individuals who are making these assertions, rewriting history with these narratives, they need to actually dig a little deeper so that they get a better understanding of what is going on. It's not enough to just do the research. An individual, you have to understand the context. You have to actually be able to interpret the research, interpret the data, and make sure that you understand what is really being asserted when you are offering a piece of evidence. This particular piece of evidence does not support the contention. As a matter of fact, when you look at the narrative related to the piece of evidence, you can see that it refutes the contention being made.
And reparations is only due to a certain few. Depending on what they're talking about. Like, I mean, if they're talking about slavery, then everybody would get reparations, including white people. They also did the exact same thing our ancestors did. Everybody was slaves. This was big business. And that's documented. But I'm making a misconception. They making it seem as if our ancestors came off of a boat, had on chains and shackles, and were forced into this.
Now let's address this issue of individuals asserting that slavery was a job. It was a salaried, a paid job. Slavery and job do not go together. Slavery is one particular type of legal status, and a job, an employee, that's a totally different type of legal status. And so you see this dynamic with the individual in the picture, Wilson Chin. And in this picture, there is a discussion about Wilson Chin, and what you see is that Wilson Chin was sold. It doesn't say that an indenture contract was sold. It says the individual was sold. It also identifies the individual as one who was branded like cattle with a hot iron on the forehead, and that individuals who were enslaved by this particular individual, they were also branded on their arms and their breasts. This is not indicia of a job. This is an indicator of enslavement. This is an indicator of chattel slavery. And individuals can continue to assert until they're blue in the face that this was a job, but there is no evidence to support this contention. And so if individuals are going to continue on with these assertions, individuals need to provide the evidence of this. It's not enough to make the assertion. So if there is evidence that these were actual jobs, then, or these were indenture contracts, individuals who are stylizing themselves as researchers, ethnographic researchers, they need to be able to provide the data, show these indenture contracts for all of these individuals who were classified as enslaved. Show those indenture contracts, show these employment contracts, show something that supports this contention that millions of individuals were actually employed versus enslaved.
What paperwork do you have to tell these white folks, hey, look, no, my ancestors worked on this field right here, okay, enslaving. And see, and then you got to stop using the term slavery. It was employment. They were hired to do a job. Just like right now. That was my whole last point.
Let me just say this. Then I go.
Now, a number of individuals are asserting that individuals can't prove that their ancestors were enslaved because they have no paperwork to show that this enslavement took place. They have no paperwork to demonstrate that their ancestors were enslaved on a particular plantation. However, there is significant evidence related to enslaved individuals, the plantations where they were enslaved. You have significant documentation related to, again, these slave voyages. You have significant documentation related to insurance policies. You have significant documentation related to people being enslaved based upon ads for enslaved individuals. And in this case, when you're talking about Wilson, you actually have the information related to this family in Louisiana. And so you can actually see the plantations that were owned by this family, providing the indicators that the individual was enslaved related to one of these plantations. And here you can see additional information related to this family that was related to the enslavement of Wilson. And here you can see additional information. So it's not as if slavery took place in a vacuum. Slavery involved actual human beings being enslaved by actual individuals who were enslavers. And here you see additional information related to plantations, Creole plantations in Louisiana, and you can see where it says once there were more than 300. And so if you have more than 300 plantations, there is the suggestion that you had individuals who were enslaved to work those plantations. Now you have a number of individuals who are from the Northeast making all sorts of assertions and assumptions about what was going on in the South, in the Southeast. But unless an individual is knowledgeable about that area and knowledgeable about the history in that area, the history of plantations, the history of slavery, the culture in that area, they may misunderstand what actually took place in that area. And sometimes there's a dynamic of projection where an individual projects onto others, onto another culture, things based upon their own culture. And so the culture of the Northeast is inconsistent with the culture of the Southeast.
See, that's the reason why that's the reason why we come in. Our ancestors depended on people like us and those that in the chat and those that are watching and still learning. Our ancestors are dependent on us, not no government, not no job. They depended on us to change things around for the liberation of our people, the betterment of our people. That's a necessity, more so than some money. Way more work to do. I'm not the only one stating this. There's too many people around the world that are stating this, around the world.
Right.
So, I mean, that's another thing that people not recognizing. It's not just our own people. It's white people coming out saying it now. It's Latino people coming out saying it now. It's a whole bunch of people coming out saying it.
Then I go to my brother, and I say, brother, help me, please. But he winds up, knocking me back down on my.
Okay, let's address this issue of attempting to use evidence that someone else agrees with someone as proof positive of an assertion. Evidence is not simply citing that individuals who are quote unquote white and Latino agree with someone. That's insufficient evidence. And so evidence of an assertion related to enslavement This is a broad history. It's a broad and deep history. It requires more than someone else agrees with me. There is plenty of evidence out there to support a number of dynamics related to slavery, that history of slavery. And so some individuals place a lot of credence in having validation from certain social groups. And so they may use that assertion to sort of undergird whatever it is that they are saying, to give credence to it when there is no credence to it. Now, one of the most interesting dynamics about this entire thing is this. The individuals who are making all of these assertions, the individuals who are so invested in creating these false narratives related to slavery, these are individuals who claim to have no history of slavery in terms of their ancestry. These are individuals who are claiming to be American Indian and denying any history of enslavement. This entire dynamic is centered on and revolves around this attempt to sabotage any effort by individuals who understand themselves as being descended from enslaved individuals or descended from individuals who experienced Jim Crow. It's inconceivable why this is so important to individuals who are claiming an Indian identity, because those individuals, they already have their own challenges to surmount related to treaties, related to their own restoration. And so if they are prioritizing things accurately, they will take their time to focus on what concerns them. So what concerns individuals who are identifying as ADOS is really no business of those individuals who are identifying as Indian, who are claiming that they have no ancestral experience with enslavement or Jim Crow. And so those who are attempting to advance all of these false historical narratives related to enslavement, related to the history of America, related to the history of Africa, related to the history of Europe, those individuals should ask themselves, what is the purpose? What is the goal of doing that? It is definitely not serving a beneficial end for individuals in general. It's not serving a beneficial end for society. And all it is doing is creating division and discord where such is unnecessary. Knowledge is power, but so is prudence. Take care. See you soon.